The stars had always called to humanity. For generations, they looked up at the night sky, wondering what lay beyond their small blue world. When they finally broke free of Earth's gravity in the 23rd century, humans thought they were taking their first steps into a vast, ancient universe. They believed they were newcomers, inexperienced travelers venturing into a galaxy filled with civilizations that had mastered the stars long before Earth's first rocket broke atmosphere. They couldn't have been more wrong. The year 2389 marked humanity's expansion to their fourth colony world, a lush garden planet orbiting Ta Ceti. Terraforming efforts were underway on Mars and Venus, and the unified Earth government celebrated 2 centuries without major conflict. Scientists predicted another golden age of human achievement, but while humanity looked toward the future with hope, an ancient threat was already watching from the shadows. The Viridian Empire ruled over 200 star systems. Their ships were vast cities that traveled between stars, their technology so advanced it appeared magical to human observers. When their scout vessels first detected human transmissions, the Viridian High Command was intrigued. A new species, seemingly primitive but advancing rapidly, had established a foothold in a small cluster of stars. Analysis suggested these humans would be easy to conquer, perhaps useful as laborers or subjects for scientific study. The Viridians never bothered with declarations of war or warnings. On April 17, 2390, their warships appeared in Earth's orbit, massive obsidian structures that blotted out the sun over major cities. The human defense fleet, only 30 ships strong, was obliterated within minutes. Orbital defense platforms crumbled like paper. Ground-based weapon systems failed to even scratch the invaders' shields. Admiral Elena Vasquez, commander of Earth's defense forces, ordered a desperate final attack. As her flagship, the UES Dauntless, charged the Viridian command vessel, she sent one final transmission. "We may fall today, but humanity will never kneel." The Dauntless was vaporized before it could fire a single shot. Earth surrendered 12 hours after the first Viridian ships appeared. The colonies followed within days. Supreme Commander Thalvor of the Viridian Empire accepted humanity's capitulation with the casual indifference of someone who had conquered dozens of species before. "You will serve the Empire now," he announced to billions of terrified humans watching their broadcasts. "Resistance is pointless. Obedience means survival." In the months that followed, humans were sorted, catalogued, and distributed throughout Viridian territories. Some became miners, extracting precious minerals from asteroids and moons. Others worked in vast factories, assembling components for Viridian technology they'd barely understood. The most intelligent were taken to research facilities, their minds picked apart to determine the limits of human cognition. The Viridians established their primary Earth base in what was once Washington, D.C., converting the National Mall into a fortress of alien architecture. Supreme Commander Thalvor took the White House as his personal headquarters, a symbolic gesture to emphasize humanity's defeat. But even in those dark days, strange things began to happen. In a mining facility on Luna, Guard Commander Zevlak found a human worker standing motionless, staring at the wall. When Zevlak approached, the human, a 50-year-old former accountant named Michael Chen, turned with eyes that glowed like distant stars. Before Zevlak could call for backup, Chen had torn the alien's armored exoskeleton apart with his bare hands. Security footage showed Chen walking calmly through the facility, killing 17 Viridian guards before disappearing into the lunar tunnels. Similar incidents occurred across human territories. A teenage girl in a Barcelona processing center shattered reinforced walls with a scream. A group of farmers in the Australian outback vanished overnight, along with the Viridian outpost assigned to monitor them. In orbit around Mars, an entire Viridian cruiser went silent, only to be found drifting, its crew dead, with the ship's systems reporting that they had killed each other in a fit of inexplicable madness. Thalvor demanded answers from his scientists. These humans were nothing, he raged during a high command meeting. Their weapons were primitive, their defenses laughable. How are they now tearing apart trained soldiers with their bare hands? Dr. Selvan, the Empire's leading xenobiologist, had no explanations. It defies everything we know about human physiology, she admitted. It's as if they're changing, or perhaps remembering something their bodies always knew how to do. The first clue came 6 months after the invasion, when a Viridian archaeological team uncovered an anomaly beneath the Antarctic ice. What they found defied all expectations: a structure of clearly artificial origin, built from materials unknown to Viridian science, buried under ice that had remained undisturbed for at least 100,000 years. The structure's walls were covered in markings that resembled no known human language. Yet when Dr. Jin Park, a linguist forced to work with the Viridian expedition, first saw the symbols, she instinctively reached out and traced them with her fingers. "I can read this," she whispered, surprising herself as much as her captors. The inscription told an impossible story. Long before the first human civilizations recorded in Earth's history books, before the first cities of Mesopotamia or the pyramids of Egypt, humanity had ruled the stars. They had commanded technologies that made the Viridian Empire look primitive by comparison. They had conquered and subjugated hundreds of species across thousands of worlds. And they had been feared so deeply that an alliance of a dozen ancient species had fought a century-long war just to contain them. When Park translated this revelation to the Viridian commander, he laughed. "Absurd. These humans can barely leave their solar system. They are not the demons of galactic legends." But deeper in the structure, they found a chamber that silenced his mockery. A perfect holographic projection activated as they entered, showing star maps of territories far beyond what humans had explored, all marked with symbols matching those on the walls. And at the center of the chamber stood a single stasis pod, its occupant perfectly preserved after millennia of sleep. The being inside looked human but wasn't, not quite. Taller, with subtle differences in facial structure and skin tone that spoke of genetic engineering. When the Viridians attempted to open the pod, security systems activated. Ancient weapons, dormant for thousands of years, incinerated half the expedition before they could retreat. News of the discovery was suppressed, but rumors spread. Among human laborers, whispers grew of an ancient heritage, of powers buried in their DNA, of a time when humanity had not been the prey but the apex predator of the galaxy. In mining camps and labor colonies, humans began to gather in secret. They shared stories of strange dreams. Dreams of commanding starships that could crack planets, of wielding energies that could ignite suns. Dreams that felt more like memories with each passing night. The first coordinated rebellion erupted in the Amazon basin, where a labor camp housing 30,000 humans suddenly went silent. When Viridian enforcers arrived, they found the camp empty, its alien overseers executed with precision. Security recordings showed humans moving with impossible speed and strength, their eyes glowing with inner light as they tore through Viridian defenses like paper. The rebels left a message painted in Viridian blood: "We remember." Similar uprisings followed across Earth and the colonies. Humans who had been docile workers transformed overnight into coordinated fighting forces, using tactics they couldn't possibly know and abilities that defied biological understanding. In his fortress on the National Mall, Thalvor received increasingly desperate reports. 3 major cities had fallen to human rebels. Mining operations on Mars had ceased entirely, with human workers vanishing into the planet's vast tunnel networks. Communications with outposts on Europa and Titan had gone dark. Dr. Selvan, who had continued studying the Antarctic site despite the dangers, finally presented her conclusions to the Supreme Commander. "We've made a catastrophic mistake," she said, her voice trembling. "The humans aren't evolving new abilities. They're remembering old ones. Genetic analysis confirms it. Their DNA contains sequences that have been dormant for millennia, sequences that are now activating in response to stress and conflict." She projected images of brain scans from captured human rebels. Their neural pathways are reconfiguring, accessing memories that were suppressed or locked away. And the Antarctic structure, it's not just a building. It's a beacon designed to activate when humans reached a certain technological threshold or faced extinction-level threats. Thalvor stared at the data, his multiple eyes blinking rapidly as he processed the implications. Are you suggesting these primitives are? They're the predecessors, Selvan finished for him. The species that nearly conquered the galaxy 150,000 years ago. The empire that was so feared that a dozen advanced civilizations sacrificed themselves just to defeat them. The monsters that haunt our oldest myths. Impossible, Thalvor whispered, but the doubt in his voice betrayed him. The ancient alliance couldn't kill them all, Selvan continued. Instead, they used a weapon that reset human development, wiped their technology, suppressed their genetic potential, and scattered their survivors on their homeworld with no memory of what they had been. Earth was quarantined, placed off limits to all spacefaring species with warnings that were passed down through generations. Warnings we ignored. As if to punctuate her words, the building shook with a distant explosion. Outside the windows, smoke rose from the eastern quadrant of the fortress. They're here, Thalvor realized. The command center's doors burst open as a squad of Viridian guards rushed in, weapons raised. Behind them walked a human woman dressed in the tattered remains of a mining uniform. Elena Vasquez, the admiral whose ship had been destroyed in Earth's defense, should have died months ago. Instead, she stood before them, her eyes blazing with golden light, her skin seeming to ripple with energy beneath the surface. "We remember what you did to us," Vask said, her voice resonating with power that made the air vibrate. "Not just months ago. What was done to us thousands of years ago? The prison made from our own world. The chains forged from our own genetics." Selvan stared in fascination and horror. "You can't possibly remember that far back." Vask smiled, a predator's grin that had nothing of mercy in it. "Our bodies remember. Our blood remembers. And now, we all remember what we are." She raised her hand, and the Viridian guards collapsed, clutching their heads in agony as their minds were crushed by forces they couldn't comprehend. "We were kings once," Vask said, stepping toward the cowering Viridian commander. "We're going to be kings again." The rebellion that had started as isolated incidents was becoming a coordinated global uprising, and as more humans awakened to their ancient heritage, the balance of power that had seemed so certain was beginning to shift. The hunters were becoming the hunted, and the galaxy was about to remember why humanity had once been feared among the stars. Admiral Vasquez stood in what had once been the Oval Office, now transformed into Thalvor's command center. Around her gathered 24 humans, each with the same golden glow in their eyes, the same aura of power radiating from their skin. They were an unlikely collection. Miners, teachers, doctors, soldiers, united not by training, but by the ancient memories surging through their awakened genes. "The Antarctic site is secure," reported Maya Chen, sister of the first human to manifest the awakening. Once a quantum physicist, she now commanded abilities that made the laws of physics seem like mere suggestions. "Our people are extracting everything they can from its databanks." Vasquez nodded, studying the holographic display of Earth and its surrounding space. Viridian ships were retreating from orbit, abandoning outposts, and fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. They had realized too late the magnitude of their mistake. "And the prisoners?" Vasquez asked. "Thalvor and his senior command are contained," answered Darius Webb, a former Marine who had spent months in a Viridian labor camp before his awakening. "Dr. Selvan has been cooperative. She believes she can help us understand what was done to us, and how to fully restore what we lost." Vasquez's eyes narrowed. "Can she be trusted?" "She's terrified," Webb said with a grim smile. "And fascinated. Apparently, her species has myths about us. Stories of the golden-eyed destroyers who nearly conquered the galaxy before being defeated by a coalition of ancient races. She grew up thinking we were just legends meant to frighten children." "We're very real," Vask said, her voice cold. And we're just getting started. Across Earth and throughout the colonies, the pattern repeated itself. Humans who had been docile prisoners suddenly turned on their captors with abilities that seemed supernatural. They could move with blinding speed, bend metal with their bare hands, and in some cases, influence the very thoughts of their enemies. Not all humans experienced the awakening, but those who did acted as catalysts for the rebellion. They organized resistance cells, liberated camps, and taught others to access abilities that might be dormant within them. The transformation was spreading, each awakened human triggering changes in those around them. On Mars, the mining colonies had become fortresses. Underground habitats originally built by humans for protection from radiation now served as bases for resistance fighters. Daniel Okoro, once a mining engineer, emerged as their leader after discovering he could sense the presence of Viridian troops through solid rock, a talent that had saved his people countless times during the early days of the rebellion. They're evacuating Phobos Station, he told his lieutenants, eyes closed as he extended his awareness upward toward the Martian moon. Abandoning equipment, weapons, even some of their own wounded. They're running scared. Let them run, said Lin Wei, his second in command. Before the invasion, she had been an agricultural specialist. Now she could accelerate plant growth with a thought, turning Mars' sterile soil fertile wherever she walked. It won't save them. Okoro wasn't so sure. They're gathering their forces, not retreating completely. And they're calling for reinforcements from deeper in their territory. This is just the beginning. In orbit around Jupiter, the research station on Ganymede had become humanity's first true stronghold beyond Earth. Dr. James Okonkwo, who had been studying ancient data recovered from the Antarctic site, made a breakthrough that changed everything. We weren't merely rulers of the galaxy, he explained to the gathered resistance leaders during a secure transmission. We were its architects. Our ancestors didn't just conquer, they built. Constructed transit networks between stars, engineered planets to support life, elevated some species while subjugating others. He displayed images extracted from the Antarctic database, massive structures orbiting suns, artificial worlds built from scratch, star systems linked by networks of stable wormholes. The technology to do all this is encoded in our DNA, Okonkwo continued. The abilities we're seeing now are just the surface, the tip of the iceberg. Our bodies are remembering how to manipulate energy, matter, even space-time itself at the quantum level. Why erase all this? Asked Vasquez. Why take everything from us? Dr. Selvan, who had been granted limited access to the conference, spoke up. Because you were too powerful to destroy completely, but too dangerous to allow to continue. The alliance that finally defeated your empire used a weapon that altered your species at the genetic level, burying your technological knowledge and abilities beneath layers of dormant DNA that would only reactivate in extreme circumstances. Like the conquest of our world by aliens? Webb asked sardonically. Precisely, Selvan confirmed. The failsafe was designed to prevent your extinction while ensuring you could never threaten the galaxy again. You were meant to develop slowly, peacefully, perhaps one day rejoining galactic society as a humbled, gentler species. That plan failed, Vasquez said coldly. Indeed, Selvan agreed, her multiple eyes blinking nervously. When we conquered Earth, we triggered the very mechanism meant to keep you contained. And now the galaxy will pay the price for our arrogance. 3 months after the initial uprising, humanity had secured their home system. Viridian forces retreated to their nearest major base at Proxima Centauri, constructing defensive arrays and calling for reinforcements from the heart of their empire. They expected humans to follow conventional tactics, to consolidate their position, build up forces, then launch a traditional assault. They didn't understand what they were facing. On a clear autumn morning, as Viridian command staff reviewed defensive plans, their sensors detected an anomaly. A distortion in space-time appeared near their primary station, not the signature of a ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel, but something different, something older. A circle of golden light expanded before their station, a perfect ring 2 kilometers in diameter, and through it stepped 3 humans, wearing what appeared to be simple Earth clothing, floating in the vacuum without protection. Admiral Vasquez, Daniel Okoro, and Maya Chen didn't need ships anymore. They had remembered older ways to traverse the stars. The Viridian commander ordered all weapons to fire. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles lanced toward the 3 humans, only to stop midway, frozen in space as if time itself had ceased to function around them. Chen raised her hand, and the attacking ships began to crumple like paper toys, their hulls compressing under forces no shield could repel. Okoro extended his awareness into the station's systems, turning their own technology against them, triggering overloads and failures throughout the structure. And Vasquez simply walked, or rather, floated, through solid bulkheads as if they weren't there, making her way to the command center. When she arrived, she found the Viridian admiral trembling, backed against a wall, surrounded by panicking officers. "You should have left us alone," Vasquez said simply. The battle for Proxima Centauri lasted less than an hour. Not a single human ship was deployed. Just 3 awakened humans, wielding powers that made mockery of the most advanced Viridian technology. As news of the defeat spread through Viridian space, panic followed. Their military mobilized their entire fleet, but strategists couldn't agree on how to fight an enemy that didn't need ships, that could appear anywhere, that could turn their own weapons and even their minds against them. For the first time in 8 centuries, the Viridian Empire knew fear. On Earth, the Antarctic site was fully operational now, its ancient technology merged with modern systems. From its depths, Dr. Okonkwo and his team continued to unlock humanity's past, piecing together the history that had been stolen from them. "We weren't just conquerors," Okonkwo reported during a council meeting 6 months into the war. "We were explorers first, builders second, warriors when necessary. Our empire spanned thousands of worlds, but most were peaceful members, not subjugated territories." He displayed images of vast, beautiful cities on distant worlds, places where humans had lived alongside dozens of alien species in what appeared to be harmony. "What changed?" asked Vasquez. "Why did this alliance turn against us?" Okonkwo's expression darkened. "Power. As often happens, our abilities corrupted some of our leaders. A faction arose that believed humanity's right to rule was absolute, that other species existed to serve us. They began experiments, biological and psychological warfare designed to ensure compliance, atrocities committed in humanity's name." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "We became monsters," Webb said softly. "Some of us did," Okonkwo corrected. "And the rest paid the price. When the rebellion came, it was led by our former allies and friends, species we had uplifted, civilizations we had helped build. They couldn't defeat us conventionally, so they created a weapon that would reset us without exterminating us completely. And now we're awakening again," Vasquez mused. "With all of our power returning, but without the wisdom or restraint our ancestors developed over thousands of years of civilization. That's what worries me," Okonkwo admitted. "We're remembering how to tear apart starships with our minds before we remember why we shouldn't." The discussion was interrupted by a priority alert. Long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet approaching from deep space. Not just Viridian ships, but vessels from a dozen different species, many unknown to human records. An alliance formed in desperate haste, united by a common fear, the return of humanity's ancient power. "They remember what we were," Vasquez realized. "They're afraid we'll become that again." "Won't we?" asked Webb. "Isn't that what we've been fighting for? To reclaim our place as rulers of the stars?" Vasquez stared at the holographic display, watching the approaching armada, thousands of ships carrying millions of beings, all coming to stop humanity's reemergence as a galactic power. "No," she said finally. "That's what the Viridians fought for. Domination, control, hierarchy. We're fighting for something else. for the right to exist free and unbound, not to rule others, but to ensure no one rules us. She turned to face the council. If we use our awakening just to become the next tyrants, we're no better than those who enslaved us. We have to find another way. The final confrontation occurred not in Earth's orbit, as many expected, but in the space around the Viridian homeworld itself. Using recovered technology from the Antarctic site, humanity had constructed their first true starships in 150,000 years, vessels that were extensions of their own consciousness rather than mere machines. A fleet of 20 such ships, each crewed by awakened humans, materialized in the heart of Viridian space through tiers in reality that their ancestors had once called staroids. They faced an armada of over 3,000 conventional vessels from 24 species. Admiral Vasquez stood on the Bridge of the Remembrance, humanity's flagship. But this wasn't a traditional bridge with controls and stations. It was a meditation chamber where the crew's thoughts directly interfaced with the ship's systems, a perfect fusion of biology and technology. "They're hailing us," reported Chen, her consciousness partly merged with the ship's communications array. "Let's hear what they have to say," Vasquez replied. The holographic image of a Viridian official appeared, flanked by representatives of other species. Some looked nervous, others determined, all wary. "Humans," the Viridian began, "your aggression cannot be permitted to spread through the galaxy again. Surrender now, return to your homeworld, and accept restrictions on your development. This is the only offer we will make." Vask studied them calmly. "You invaded our world, enslaved our people, forced us to remember what we were. And now you demand our surrender. We acknowledge the Viridian Empire's error in violating the quarantine around Earth," conceded a representative from a species Vasquez didn't recognize, a tall, avian being with iridescent feathers and wise eyes. "That mistake awakened what should have remained dormant, but the galaxy remembers the devastation of the human empire's final days. We cannot risk such horror again." "You fear what we might become," Vask said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," admitted the avian being, "because we remember what you were." Vask closed her eyes, accessing memories that weren't entirely her own. Echoes of humanity's ancient past, glimpses of glory and terror in equal measure. When she opened them again, she had made her decision. "We will not surrender," she said firmly, "but neither will we conquer. Humanity has awakened, but we don't have to repeat the mistakes of the past. We're offering something else: coexistence." She sent data from the Antarctic archives, records of the early human empire, before corruption and tyranny took hold. Images of humans and aliens building wonders together, exploring the unknown regions of the galaxy side by side, learning from each other. "This is what we were before we lost our way," Vasquez continued. "This is what we can be again. Not your masters or your slaves, your partners among the stars." The Alliance representatives conferred among themselves, clearly skeptical. "Pretty words," the Viridian official said dismissively, "but your kind has always been dangerous. Even if you mean what you say now, what about a century from now? A millennium? Power corrupts, and your species wields more power than most. Then help us build safeguards," Vasquez proposed. "Not genetic chains or memory wipes, but cultural and ethical frameworks to ensure we never again become the monsters you fear. Work with us instead of against us." "And if we refuse?" asked the avian representative. Vasquez looked around at her crew, at humans who could tear apart starships with a thought, who could bend space and time, who had only begun to tap into abilities that had once made humanity the most formidable force in the galaxy. "Then we'll defend ourselves," she said simply. "But remember, we chose to come here and talk first. The old human empire would have struck without warning. We're already becoming something different, something better." A tense silence followed. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, with fleets poised to unleash destruction on a scale not seen for thousands of years. Finally, the avian being spoke again. "I am Erixel of the Luminar Concord. My species was among those who helped design the weapon that reset humanity. We did so not out of hate, but necessity and grief, for we had been humanity's closest allies before the corruption took hold. Erixel stepped forward in the projection. I will speak with this human. Alone. Perhaps there is a path forward that does not lead to mutual destruction. What followed was a negotiation unlike any in recent galactic history. For 3 days, Vasquez and Erixel spoke aboard a neutral vessel, sharing histories, fears, hopes, and visions for the future. Other representatives joined gradually, cautious but curious. The Viridians, who had triggered this crisis with their conquest of Earth, were relegated to observers, their empire's influence already waning as other species questioned their judgment and leadership. On the 4th day, Vasquez returned to the remembrance with a proposal. Not a surrender, not a victory, but a covenant. Humanity would reclaim its place among the stars, but with agreed limitations and oversight. A council of species, including awakened humans, would monitor the reintegration, ensuring that humanity's growing powers remained in check while allowing for peaceful development. It's not perfect, Vasquez told her crew. We'll be watched carefully for generations. Our technology will be limited in some ways, our expansion controlled. But we'll be free. And more importantly, we'll be part of something greater than conquest. We'll be building rather than destroying. Not all humans embraced the agreement. Some, drunk on newfound power and ancient memories of dominance, argued for forcing their way back to galactic supremacy. But they were the minority. Most awakened humans carried not just memories of power, but also the wisdom that came from experiencing both sides of oppression, both as ancient conquerors and recent victims. 1 year after the Viridian invasion of Earth, humanity officially rejoined the galactic community, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals with a complex legacy. The Antarctic site became an open research center where humans and aliens studied together, carefully unlocking the technological wonders of humanity's past while ensuring the mistakes stayed buried. Humanity continued to awaken, but now with guidance, not just remembering how to wield power, but why restraint mattered more. Their ships once again traveled between the stars, but as explorers and diplomats rather than conquerors. And if some species still watched humans with wary eyes, if some still whispered about the golden-eyed destroyers when they thought no humans could hear, well, that was to be expected. Trust would take time. Perhaps centuries. We have time. Vasquez told Erixel during a council meeting on the 5th anniversary of first contact. That's one thing the awakening taught us. Patience. We've been reborn twice now. First from conquerors to primitives, then from primitives to something new. Something that remembers both the glory and the cost of power. Erixel's feathers shimmered in thoughtful patterns. Do you ever regret it? Having to rebuild rather than simply reclaiming what was once yours. Vasquez looked out at the stars, stars that had once trembled at humanity's approach, that might have done so again had different choices been made. No, she said softly. The galaxy needs builders more than it needs rulers. It took us 150,000 years and 2 rebirths to learn that lesson. I think we finally got it right. Beyond the council chamber, humanity continued its careful reemergence. Golden-eyed children learned to use their gifts with wisdom alongside lessons in history both recent and ancient. Ships bearing the new human emblem. A phoenix rising from a spiral galaxy. Explored regions their ancestors had once dominated, this time extending hands in friendship rather than conquest. The awakening continued, but tempered now by the hard-won wisdom of 2 falls and 2 rises. Humanity remembered who they had been, who they could be again, and more importantly, who they chose to be instead.